In this section, we will learn about predisposing risk factors that contribute to the unique vulnerabilities among youth workers. These factors place them at an increased risk of adverse health effects related to safety and well-being in the workplace. So recall that youth are considered to be those individuals between the ages of 15 and 24 years of age, even though youth, as young as 14 years of age, may legally work in the United States in the non-agricultural sector, and even younger, as we learned previously, in the agricultural sector. So among youth, those below 18 years of age are the most vulnerable due to several factors. These include the fact that as new workers, this age group is inexperienced and often unfamiliar with tasks and may lack knowledge of workplace hazards. For example, it is reported that a worker's risk of injury is 4 times greater during the first month in a new job as compared to after having worked at the job for 12 months or longer. The majority are also employed in part-time, temporary, and low-paying jobs, which often translates to youth being unaware of their rights as workers and receiving inadequate safety training at the workplace. Additionally, child labor laws are not current and are often unenforced. This is especially true in the agricultural sector, where children as young as 10 years of age can work in a farm, and in some cases, there is no age limit to work in a farm, as we discussed previously. Moreover, factors like physical and psychosocial characteristics may contribute to their unique vulnerabilities. Now, let's briefly go over some of these physical and psychosocial characteristics that are contributing risk factors to the unique vulnerabilities of working youth. For one, children or youth are not little adults and are still developing. This means that exposures to chemical and physical agents could result in adverse health risks. For example, among adolescent males, lung and thoracic development occurs during and until the end of puberty. Boys begin puberty sometime between the ages of 9 and 14, with most reaching puberty by the time they're 17 years of age. Therefore, exposures to chemicals at the workplace that can affect the immune or respiratory system during this critical window could impact respiratory health among males. Exposures during the adolescence period could also increase the risk of other adverse health effects. For example, one study reported that exposure to anti-androgenic phthalates during adolescence was associated with maladaptive behaviors, including externalizing behavior, developmental social disorders, and decrements in adaptive skills. Phthalates are synthetic chemicals widely used in consumer products as plasticizers and solvents, and can also be found in cleaning agents and food packaging, among other products. Another physical characteristic that may impact children's vulnerabilities to workplace hazards include growth spurts, which may also occur during puberty and may have implications at the workplace, particularly among males. Larger males may be assigned tasks apt for adults, such as handling heavy equipment and machinery without regard to experience or physical strength to perform the task. This increases a risk of back or other musculoskeletal injuries. Another characteristic or risk factor that places youth at an increased risk of workplace hazards includes their emotional development. Youth are more susceptible to social pressures, including the desire to fit in and be seen as competent and independent, which can drive risk-taking behaviors at work. This is also a time when youth are developing interpersonal skills and want to prove themselves as capable, reliable, and dependable workers. This translates into youth avoiding speaking up about workplace dangers for fear of being perceived as troublemakers or complainers, increasing the risk of injuries and illnesses at the workplace. Another risk factor includes educational level, as awareness of workplace safety is positively influenced by education. Young workers with higher levels of education have a better understanding of safety, are more compliant with safety procedures, and suffer fewer accidents than workers with less education. Lack of skills and training are additional risk factors, as young workers joining the workforce for the first time do not have the same skills and experience as older workers. It is also important to note that it is not uncommon for there to be overlapping vulnerabilities among working youth, increasing the risk of occupational injuries and illnesses. Factors such as gender, lack of education and training, in addition to migration status, combined with age, can increase this risk. Migrant workers, for example, have some of the highest work-related accident rates. Keep in mind that a 12-year-old cannot legally buy cigarettes in the United States, but they are allowed to work in a tobacco field for about 10 to 12 hours a day in 100-degree heat and suffer repeated bouts of nicotine poisoning. This is legal because of decades-old exemptions to the U.S. child labor laws that apply to agriculture under the Fair Labor Standards Act, or FLSA. Additional concerns among working youth have to do with mental health, specifically emotional labor and job stress, as well as workplace violence. Emotional labor refers to the management of feeling to create a publicly observable facial and bodily display, requiring one to induce or suppress feeling in order to sustain the outward countenance that produces the proper state of mind in others. So why might emotional labor be harmful? Recall that many working youth are employed in the service sector and retail jobs, and direct contact with customers requires effort, and the management of emotion may be detrimental to the worker. The occupational demand may be a source of added job stress. Also, interactions with distraught customers can generate discomfort and create a sense of inauthenticity that the customer is always right, making the management of emotions commoditized or part of doing business. Youth working in select sectors may also experience workplace violence. Young workers are employed predominantly in leisure, hospitality, and retail trades, where workplace violence, including threats, physical assaults, and verbal abuse, is a common occurrence. Work in these environments requires frequent interactions with customers, the handling of cash, and working late hours, all of which have been shown to contribute to increased risk of workplace violence. Workplace violence among youth may also include bullying, verbal abuse, sexual harassment, threats, physical and sexual assault, as well as robbery. Perpetrators of workplace violence against young workers most commonly include customers and co-workers. It's important to note that workplace violence is also an often underreported phenomenon, particularly among youth workers, due to the fear of reprisals, lack of training, lack of awareness, and normalization of violence. Poverty status among youth may also impact their unique vulnerabilities and risks. Low-income youth are more likely to work in high-risk occupations such as agriculture, mining, and construction. In addition, poverty-related health problems, such as malnutrition, could increase the risk and consequences of work-related hazards and may lead to permanent disabilities and premature death. The risk of adolescent labor among youth also include developmental, physical, and psychosocial effects of child labor. For example, child labor may threaten completion of developmental tasks and education such as identity development, striving for autonomy, and achievement. Long hours of work on a regular basis can harm children's social and educational development. It has been reported that among youth adolescents, those who work more than 20 hours per week report more problem behaviors, including aggression, misconduct, as well as substance use, in addition to sleep deprivation and related problems like falling asleep in school. Sleep deprivation is also linked to other adverse health risks, including obesity. Moreover, working over 20 hours per week is also linked with declines in school engagement and increases in substance use and delinquency compared to youth who remain unemployed. Conversely, working 20 hours or less a week has negligible effects, positive or negative, on academic, psychological, or behavioral outcomes. So here is a summary of why young workers get injured, sick, or suffer fatalities on the job. Workers between the ages of 15 and 24 years of age are reported to experience higher rates of injury than workers who are 25 years of age or older. Evidence suggests that contributors to increased injury risk among younger workers include workplace hazards associated with young worker jobs, violations of child labor laws, a fast-paced work environment, underrepresented status, as well as lack of skills, experience, supervision, and high-quality safety training. Young workers may also be less likely to recognize workplace hazards, voice safety concerns, and be aware of their legal protections. While there are many factors that must be considered to ensure workplace safety and health among working youth, and the fact that there are some risks in adolescent labor, as we just discussed, employment among some youth can impart positive effects. For example, work experience can promote the healthy development of youth, especially when it is moderate in intensity and steady in duration, attributes that assure that the employment does not interfere with other important elements in an adolescent's life. Rather, they foster an appropriate balance between school and work. Steady work may also foster the development of knowledge and skills, including self-reliance, self-esteem, self-discipline, knowledge on organizational skills and communication, teaching them responsibility, teamwork skills, and expose them to occupational choices, in addition to imparting time management skills that serve youth well as they move into college, since most college students continue to work to support themselves and may need to pay tuition. Lastly, work may be beneficial for some youth that do not wish to pursue a higher education. There are several resources for the youth labor force available from government entities, including the National Institutes of Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH, as well as the Department of Labor. These include resources for youth workers, parents, as well as employers. So in summary, adolescence is a highly formative and precarious period of physical and psychological development. Factors such as physical development, emotional development, educational level, and emotional labor can have an impact on working youth when it comes to health and safety, as well as well-being at the job. Exemptions to child labor laws pose a risk to working youth, particularly in the agricultural sector. The potential for injury and psychological trauma, including depression, anxiety, and stress, should also not be overlooked among youth. Work can have both a negative and positive impact among youth based on different factors, including work environment and number of hours worked. A comprehensive public health strategy for protecting young workers requires designing and maintaining safer work sites, legislation and enforcement, as well as proper education and training. This concludes our lecture on adolescents and children in the workforce. Thank you for your time.